I'd like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Zoning Commission for the town of Simsbury for Monday, April 20th, 2015. We have 4 regular members. So I will sit both Jackie and Mike for Jerry and Derek. Okay. I know Derek is not going to be here. Don't know about Jerry either.
Seen Jerry in a while.
All right. First item would be the approval of minutes of the April 6th regularly scheduled meeting. Did get a chance to go through them. I like the new format where we don't detail a lot of the discussion because it's all on the record, but I think we captured the essence of all the motions pretty well. Hiram has since created an approval letter that's gone to the applicant, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I would move that we adopt the minutes as submitted unless anyone has anything major. All right? All done? Good. Item number 4 on our agenda is the consent item. Dorset Crossing Specialty Housing donation of .36 acres to the town of Simsbury to be combined with existing open space parcel. You want to just briefly speak to this, Hiram?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if anybody needs to see that map again. We talked about this one time before. This is basically the, again, donation of .36 acres of existing open space. It's floodplain. It abuts the town's current open space. The proposal by the applicant some time ago was to donate this to the open space. It doesn't affect the development of the lot. It doesn't affect the location of the building or anything else the commission previously approved. It does, however, affect the lot size is smaller, but it doesn't significantly impact existing
Coverage, the coverage ratios, the parking lot space, none of that changes as a result.
Well, the coverage ratio technically would change because the lot is slightly smaller, but there's no difference with regard to any disturbance that's there. Paving is all the same, parking is all the same. So they offered to donate this to the town. It's been through Planning Commission, Open Space Commission, Conservation Commission, Board of Selectmen. Can't think of anybody else, but it's been around.
And their primary motivation for this is that they don't pay taxes on it?
They don't want to pay flood insurance.
Flood insurance, okay, now I get it. All right.
They did make a donation to the
It was
town.
very generous of them to do this for the town. All right.
Is it, the coverage is still okay within our zone?
Yeah, because it's a PAD zone, it's up to the commission.
Okay.
There's no question that it's not changing anything with regard to what the commission previously approved.
All right, so I think the majority, seconded, we all, no one had any issues with it, so consider that approved. All right? Item number 5, discussion of possible action on any agenda item, including application number 15-08 of David A. Richmond, agent, HOP 760 LLC owner for a unified sign plan on property located at 760 Hot Meadow Street, Assessor's Map G10, Block 205, Lot 3 and 4, zones SC1 and SC2.
Good evening. I'm David Richmond, and myself, another resident, Dr. Pat Felice, and Chad Alford. We purchased 760 Hot Meadow Street June 2014. That sat empty for about 7 months. We began to change the footprint internally to a multi-tenanted building and had short-term success. With that, we realized that the existing signage we misinterpreted, and to fast track, met with town staff, and they recommended we come in and do what's called the uniform sign plan submission. Now, we just met with design review and made some changes to our initial application. The application calls for a freestanding sign which will be, there's a grass, it's indicated on the map, but if everyone understands the entrance to the building, you have Vincent's on the left or north and our building on the right or south. There's a patch of grassy area right now with a 760 wooden sign that's probably been there for 15 years. And we're proposing to install brand new sign listing all the tenants' names. And you have a description of, Chris Aubin couldn't be here from Signs Plus, who's designed everything. 760, it's known as the Landmark Building, which is very important. And it will be a directory of tenants. What's changed is, the original application also called for 2 signs to be placed on the front. There's an indentation that's right to the left of the front door on the second story and right to the left and to the right. Since our meeting earlier this evening, with input from the committee, we have chosen to not go forward with putting signs on the building. And those primarily, our tenant had asked for that, and it was primarily the tenant on the bottom who had moved from Terriffill to our building and takes up about 25% of the space in the building. So what we chose to change is to give this one tenant the top of the sign. And this tenant's actually moved out, so it works good because one of the tenants that's in there already is growing, so they took her office. So instead of having her here with a larger component of the existing sign, the recommendation would be to just take this here and carry it across the front, giving her the exposure that she's requested, eliminating the need for signs on the building. In addition, in the rear of the building, we converted a space that was empty to a new business in town, a hair salon. And we proposed putting a sign right to the left of her entrance for really identifier. It will not be seen from the street, it will not be seen unless you pull into the parking lot and park and get out of your car and walk around the back, you'll see the sign next to her door. And that will be Ashmore hair design right on the building, same, keeping the same colors. And this sign will be put into the ground with the 2 posts, grassy area, not illuminated, not landscaped, just leaving it the way it is. There's a lot of landscaping on that property as you can see in some of the pictures that were provided. And I guess previous meeting we just had at 5:30, you know, it worked out well with what they recommended, and again, eliminating the signs on the building, letting it keep its historic look, which is important to us, but the tenants came to us and wanted us to come forward with that, and hence we have chosen to no longer ask for that as part of the submission for tonight's hearing. So we're applying for a sign on the parcel south of the entrance on Hot Meadow, and a rear sign on the building to identify the new tenant. Everything else is as is.
Okay. Thank you. There were some questions that Hiram had asked in email correspondence about being able to keep the sign as tenants come and go. You will have...
Yeah, they come right, there's little screws.
Okay.
And so as they come and go, as you can see this sign, we've already lost one of the persons on here. And so they're gone. So typically you just take that plaque off. This is not painted. It's done with a machine that, it's a decal. Looks like paint unless you go right up to it and touch it, and then it's a decal. So it's simple. He just takes them right off, brings them back to his shop, takes the old off, puts the new on. He's very familiar with, he does a lot of the work in town.
All right, any questions?
So where's this gonna go? If you look at the building?
Right now, there's a sign in the ground that's...
To the left. Isn't there a post to the left?
Not the post that's in the shrubbery.
That's what I'm thinking of, yeah.
That's the original sign that Simsbury Bank had.
Okay.
It's to the left, there's a grass area, and there's a 760 stuck in the ground.
Oh, okay.
A little bit east of that,
Okay.
right there, which is a perfect
So that, the
spot.
old wooden sign will come down, right, yeah.
Well, right now, it's just a post.
Okay.
It's been taken down.
Hiram, you had also raised a question about whether the plaque on the corner of the building should be counted towards the signage.
Yeah, I would recommend not.
Yeah, I
It's a
agree.
historic plaque, it's
Right.
very nice.
Okay. Well, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay?
A couple of points of clarification that
Yeah.
design review made. Applicants indicated that the sign will be placed perpendicular to Route 10. Some of the information in the application originally may have shown the sign parallel to 10, but it's a double-sided sign that will be perpendicular to Hot Meadow Street. And it'll be in that area that's just to the north of the edge of the building. I think that shows on the sign in your packet. Discussion about landscaping, applicants covered that. As the applicant represented that he had proposed originally signs in the front of the building and was willing to forego that. And that was design review board's recommendation to the commission this evening.
And the sign is far enough in the driveway that it's not gonna block anybody trying to leave?
That's a one-way in.
Yeah, okay.
It is sometimes used,
Yes.
exits, usually on the weekends,
Yep.
after 5. Most of the people that park there are tenants or customers of several of the tenants, but it does say entrance only on the rear. Most people are pretty good, because it's not, you can't take a left at 5 o'clock, so that's the reason.
Becky, but to your question, one of the things that's really important is that the sign will be shown on the application installed not in the state right of way, but behind that as well. So sightline issues,
Gotcha.
if somebody did drive out of there, should not
Yes.
be an issue.
Okay.
Right, and to clarify the Ashmore sign, even though it says 12 by 12 here, it's actually 18 by 18?
Yes,
Okay. Right.
12 by 12 we recommended it, they recommended 18 by 18, so that's correct.
I gotta be clear on that, David, I don't understand that.
The Ashmore sign,
Yes.
instead of 12 by 12, I believe he said 18 by 18.
All
But
right,
what did we say?
12 by 12.
Okay,
I didn't hear any discussion about that earlier this evening, so I was unclear about that.
Was in one of the emails, that's why I questioned it.
Well,
What does it show on there?
18 by 18,
Yeah, that shows 18 by 18.
so you've got,
It's on the back of the building, it's not gonna.
You're
I
not-
know, no, I think it's fine at 18 by 18, but I
I
just
think we
wanted to
would
make sure we
recommend
approved the
that to
right
be
thing.
18 by 18.
Let's approve it at 18 by 18.
Uh,
All right. All right, any other questions? I guess since this is the only agenda item for action, I would take a motion for approval.
Come on.
I'll motion that we accept the sign
All right. So
with
this
the
would-
modification to the 18
So
by
the,
18.
yeah, the application as amended and presented to us tonight, which means without the 2 signs on the front of the building, but with the 18 by 18 sign and its location as described. So Vaughn moved it
Second?
and seconded by David. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved.
Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to add that Rachel was very helpful in working with us, came out to the property, and was really helpful in giving us advice. And also, sometimes you guys never hear good feedback. I said this earlier. So when we came in here about a year ago to put our ramp in at 730 Hot Meadow, it was designed from Hot Meadow straight up to the stairs, and then from the rear parking lot straight up to the end of the building and cutting in. And we chose a north, east, south, west, south. And it sounds weird, but we've had so many people come up to us and tell us how much they love the ramp. And we haven't finished the plantings. But just so you know, I mean, literally, people stop me and go, that's the most beautiful ramp we've ever seen. And so that's important because we worked on that sketch. It took us a while, but we got it right. And so I just wanted you guys to know that. Sometimes you don't hear the good.
I do have one more question. Is the Landmark Partners sign staying or going?
On the building,
On the door?
we're not, it's not, I needed to clarify that in the notes. It's not painted, it's metal letters that are glued. So to take them off would kind of be a pain.
Okay, but they're not in the building, right?
Nah,
Landmark Partners? No.
Yeah.
no.
I know, but it's just a little confusing.
It's known as the Landmark Building. It does say Landmark Partners on the door, but Simsbury Bank left it on there as well. So we're thinking it's harder to take off than to just leave
Not
it.
for a long time.
Okay.
All right, thank you
Well, we're
very
delighted to
much.
have that building used, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
There's a good demand for space in town, just so you know.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Agenda item 6, informal discussion. Review of potential subdivision at 80 Climax Road.
Good evening, Chair, Commission members. My name is Andrew Quirk, a professional engineer and principal with Kratzer Jones and Associates.
Can you repeat the company and your last name?
The last name is Quirk, Q-U-I-R-K, and the firm is Kratzer, that's A-R-A-T-Z-E-R-T, Jones and Associates. And I'm here this evening with Michael Mansar, Mansar Development, and Ed Ferrigno, the applicants. We're here for an informal discussion of workforce housing application that we plan to make in the future, and we'd like to get some feedback from this commission where we stand with the application and take that feedback before we make an actual formal application. The property is along Climax Road. Climax Road along the Avon-Simsbury town line. The south property line is actually the town line. Presently, there's an existing white house sitting right about here off of Climax Road. The property is presently zoned R40 and has an area of 4.4 acres. What we're looking to propose is a workforce housing subdivision. It would be an actual subdivision. There's different mechanisms for a workforce housing, and that's the one that we've looked at for making the application. Proposed before you would be 18 homes, New England style village. 26 would be the maximum allowed for the regulations that I'll go into a little bit further down in my presentation. We're looking to propose a public road that would meet the town standards in terms of the cul-de-sac width, geometrics, and construction. The road would be approximately 470 linear feet. Within the workforce housing regulation, there's a lot of leeway in terms of design standards. A lot of that is part of the zone change that would be approved by this commission, where the dimensional standards are set for the particular property. That's something that's subject to the zone change approval, where those standards are set on a case-by-case basis for the individual properties that apply for that zone change. What we've put forth here is a lot width of 58 feet with a 15-foot minimum front yard, 7-foot minimum side yard, and a 25-foot minimum rear yard. And again, all of those standards would be set by this commission as part of any zone change approval. The town standard road, again, the town standard is for a 26-foot wide road. We've met with the fire marshal, and with similar applications, there's been a roadway reduction in terms of trying to reduce impervious surfaces to a 24-foot wide road. So we would probably look to follow suit with that as well. Overall, there's the property is served by sewer and water, so there's public services available for the individual homes. We would be putting forth drainage details, but just as an overall, there's presently 2 depression areas before Climax Road with an overflow to Climax Road, and any storm drainage system that we would propose would mimic those same drainage patterns, whereby any increase in runoff is stored on site with an overflow through Climax Road, and there's a drainage system on Evans Road that it would connect to. I went through the process and the regulations for the workforce housing, and we've been meeting with town staff and for about the last year, and I tried to put myself in the position of this commission if such an application was put forth, and there's a lot of decisions with such an overlay that would have to be made. The process, as I see in the regulations, is that first a zone change would be made, and you've outlined in your regulations specific sub-districts. Not all towns do that, and I think it was probably wise with the workforce housing to identify the sub-districts for the type of housing you want to have for a particular property. There's 6 sub-districts that are allowed if such a zone change is approved, and we're looking here at a single-family sub-district. There's mixed use, mixed housing, multifamily, townhouse, and duplex. And that would ensure that such a development would be single-family only, which is the nature of the surrounding properties are all single-family residential developments. That sub-district allows for up to 6 units per acre. The proposal before you shows 4.1 units per acre. So we're underneath that maximum threshold that could be approved. Again, one of the main things that would need to be decided as part of that zone change would be the dimensional standards. And that needs to be looked at on a case-by-case basis in terms of how best to facilitate such housing in the individual areas. Again, workforce housing is a mechanism by which the town can achieve its affordable housing requirement through different housing opportunities in different parts of the town. So I sort of envision this being one small development in the sense of the overall goal of achieving workforce housing. There would be 4 affordable units in this development of the 18 per your regulations. And it allows for that small step towards the goal within one particular development. And that ties into the dimensional standards in terms of how many housing units are appropriate for such a property. We would maintain the same 50-foot setback from Climax Road, according to this proposal. That's what's in the underlying zone, that's the streetscape, that's what you would see along Climax Road, and I think that's important to maintain that uniformity. The 7-foot side yard setback is really an important part of the dimensional standards for the architecture. We looked at a lot of different architectural styles and the value of the individual single-family houses. We're showing a fairly large individual house footprint. Each of these houses is a minimum of 42 feet wide and 45 foot deep, and also with the setbacks it allows for sunrooms, porches, things of that nature. So a lot of different opportunities within that footprint. That translates to a 1,900 square foot footprint, less a garage space, and that's all because of the 7-foot side yard setback. So that's an important part of it. And then we've shown a 25-foot rear yard setback. But that's a big part of what this commission, I think, would need to do.
Is that 7 in total, or is it 7 per unit? So you have 14 feet between
You have a
them?
minimum of 14
Okay.
units a unit, right? We'd have a lot more detail for the formal application, and I have some more information, but I think before going any further, I'd like to turn it back to the commission for feedback and comments with such an application.
These houses would be for sale or
Yes.
for rental?
Yeah, one of the things we looked at was common interest communities, and we felt that the highest value would be in a public road with individual lots. And that's exactly what this development would be.
Price point?
I think,
Well, the price point on the individual homes would be probably in the $450,000 to $500,000 price range. The affordable units have to meet a threshold of about $285,000, which there can't be dramatically different. You can't be building like 1,200 square foot units for the affordable and then a 2,500 square foot unit for the normal marketing process. You know, the homes got to range in size maybe from 1,800 square feet to 2,500 square feet. One of the reasons we also wanted to maintain the 42-foot frontage is we want to design even the affordable units to have a similar width to the non-affordable units, so that when you drive down the street, you can't all of a sudden just go, oh, okay, that's the affordable one there, that's the affordable one there. We want all the homes to look so even though you drive down the street, you really wouldn't, for the most part, be able to tell the differences from one to the next.
I need your name.
I'm sorry, Michael Mansour, M-A-N-S-O-U-R.
Thanks.
These are one-story houses?
Two-story.
So
Two-car garage, all two-car
Square
garage.
foot
Pardon?
per house? What's the square footage?
Between 1,800 to 2,500 square feet.
42 times 45 is 1,890 square feet. So these are 4,000 square foot houses.
well, typically you don't count the garage space as part of that living space. That's going to be almost 500 square feet on the first floor right
So we're
there.
at 3,500 square feet.
Well, and also the second floor would not be as large as the first.
Yeah, there'd be less square footage.
Yeah.
We're not trying to build little mini McMansions, to be honest with you. We're trying to do just the opposite. We're trying to keep homes under $500,000, not be selling, you know, these large, huge homes. I'm the developer in the valley. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with, I've done the development in Kingswood of Avon. There's about 130 lot subdivision there that I built over the years. And that's these type of homes, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm the ones we were talking about, the 3,500, 4,000. There's homes in the subdivision over 6,000 square feet. We're trying to do just the opposite, to be honest with you. Just trying smaller homes. There's a real market for people who want to live in the four valley towns, want to buy new construction, want to have their own house with no common fees. We've looked at some of the others, and that really hurts, especially the affordable people. They're trying to get in, meet a certain price point. They have to meet certain regulations, obviously, to afford even that $285,000, $290,000 home. If you've got common dues in the $150 to $200 a month, which a lot of these, some other affordable subdivisions have, that really pushes them sometimes over that limit to be able to afford their mortgage and all their monthly expenses.
You own the whole, if you purchase, you own the land and the house.
Correct.
There's no common ownership.
No
there's
common. Maintain your own yard, everybody maintains their own yard. Nobody has to come in and mow the lawn, no insurance for everybody. So the entire property is, as you see it, is all laid out. Every single homeowner owns what their house sits on.
Right. It's a standard subdivision. In fact, we had the same informal session with the planning commission envisioning that we would be before them for a subdivision application as well.
How many of the units were affordable?
With the town regulations, it would be 4. Town
20%.
regulations are similar to the affordable housing regulations of the state, but they're at 20%, and the state is at 30%, which would be 6 of the 18.
Those are really small lots for that price point. Okay. I've been up to the development you're talking about in Avon, but that was over how many acre?
Totally different.
Okay.
I'm not comparing the two subdivisions. What I'm trying to get at was that I built another subdivision in the Farmington Valley. We're trying to do something, to be honest with you, very different. It's very difficult to try and build a home anywhere in the Farmington Valley for under $500,000. It's the land cost.
I agree.
It's all about the land. I know I have lots that I pay. I own lots in Kingswood The property taxes on a vacant building lot are $6,500. The property taxes on this house probably would be maybe $6,500.
So you're here to, so we're here, this is an opportunity for us to ask questions about a possible subdivision that will come back for a zoning change on the lot from R40 to
Workforce housing.
workforce housing. We made this up and I can never get it. Workforce housing overlay zone.
With a specific sub-district for single-family
single
housing,
family.
that's one thing.
Here's my concern, okay? And this is not apples to apples comparison, but this is how my mind works. I have a little over 2 acre lot that my house is on. I can't imagine 9 of those on my 2 acres selling for 450 to 500,000. I have a hard time believing people are gonna spend that kind of money in that environment in this town.
Yeah.
That's just I can't picture that many houses on that lot.
Yeah. It amazes me as well. I mean, we do a lot of subdivisions now. I mean, almost all the subdivision applications that we do now for various towns are open space concept subdivisions where the lot sizes are cut in half and the additional area is deeded as open space. And people are getting lot sizes half of what would normally be in that particular area, and they're paying the same price or more than
Right.
the abutting lots that have twice the area. It's
You know what the land
there
costs
seems
are.
to be a trend for somewhat less area and more house.
Yeah.
But I think particular to this application, you know, some of the things that are in the regulation, you know, this really serves a need in terms of, first of all, it's not low-income housing by any means. We're dealing with, if I can find the definition, that it would be the 4 affordable units would be to qualify for such a house. The requirement is that the household earn 80% of the area median income, and there's a 30-year deed restriction on that particular property to mean so that obviously can't be flipped and for a profit. But it serves a particular need, as I'm sure you're aware of, having approved this regulation. And I think this is an interesting property to do that, where it's a relatively small development to do that rather than, you know, hundreds of where you would deal with it on a larger scale.
Yeah. So just for the commission, a little history here might be helpful, because when we, and I don't remember how many of you were here when we actually entertained and approved this new overlay zone. It was an interesting process we went through, because we started with maybe a dozen actual targeted sites, and went from those owners of properties or developers who were interested in purchasing and then developing those properties. And the whole trade-off here is more density for giving, you know, for allowing some of the units, a percentage of units to be at the lower price point. And we weeded our way down all the way to 1. We had 4 of them in here one night for the hearing, and only one of them was left standing by the time we were done talking. For the economic reasons that you mentioned, Vaughn, and others, but you know, it's not our job to make that economic decision for Mr. Mansour, whether he can actually take the approval and put the expense into developing the property, building houses and selling them. That's his risk, that's not ours. What we achieve as a zoning commission by giving them an indication that when this comes back, we would be in favor of it from a purely zoning point of view, is that we achieve the desired goal of more affordable, accessible housing, especially for people that we want to work here, which, based on the fact we have approved how many hundreds of apartments, is an effort.
Thousands.
Not thousands, hundreds. But that this is an effort to accomplish the same goal, but preserving the neighborhood. And I know it is hard to take a 2-acre neighborhood and try to transplant your house and your neighbors into something that has 18 houses on it, but that's, you know, you look at was it Billingsgate, is an example of a product that if the developer hadn't had some vision, and those houses are very much in demand, and their ticket price on those, which are common walls, is well into the $500,000 range. So it's not our job to decide whether this is an economic thing or not, but it's good for the town. I always say, I have to say this facetiously, it's functionally Avon anyway, so no, I mean, our first home was just around the corner from here on Moravia Road when we came in, and you know, when those houses were built, R40, 1 acre lots, both sides of Climax, those were more dense than a lot of neighborhoods. So we're not approving design, we're not approving what the houses look like, or even, but the idea is that, you know, if we say we owe them the reason they come is so that we can give them an indication that from a zoning perspective, we would allow this particular piece of property to be acquired and developed with this goal in mind. And it's hard to say that we're going to accomplish our overall goal 4 houses at a time, but if we don't do it, we get further and further behind.
And, you know, and just to reiterate, this particular property, some of the density requirements talk about wetlands and steep slopes. This is a flat, open piece of property without wetlands. As far as serving such a density by infrastructure and resources, it's on an arterial street with public water and public sewer. So, you know, it has a lot of reasons, rather than being tucked further into a neighborhood or not having those services, you know, it's one of those properties that...
Mr. Mansour had a comment.
Andrew, you may want to, Michael Mansour, you may want to point out what the abutting property is around that too, because it's somewhat important in this particular case, is that there's a lot of privacy surrounding this parcel. There's not a lot of homes, single-family homes, that are actually abutting the property, so you got another house butting right up to it. It's pretty open completely around the entire parcel.
Right on the Avon line there's a private drive that runs right parallel to this south property line with a stone wall and trees along that line that serves, I believe it's 4 houses, 1 in Simsbury and 3 in Avon. And then to the north there's an easement here with a rear lot access to a property that sits further back. So it's sort of kind of isolated in a sense and buffered by these 2 drives rather than abutting houses that are...
Is this on the north or south side of Climax?
It's closer to the east side.
Well,
Northeast side.
The right side of the road as you're traveling into Simsbury.
What's on that side?
And then that private drive comes up and there's a house that sits further back, about at least 100 feet back from the property line.
A single house on 6.5 acres of land.
Right.
So there is a lot of privacy around it, and the homes that are immediately surrounding this are selling in that $350,000 to $500,000 price range. So we're not trying to put something, I know, like in, you know, when I'm in Avon or any of the towns, Farmington or Simsbury, when you always talk about affordable housing, so many big expensive homes have been built over the last 15, 20 years. Everybody raises, well, I've got my $800,000 million house, and you're trying to sell $350,000 to $500,000 next to me, and everybody goes up in uproar because they're all saying they're going to value their homes. Well, in this particular case, we are actually pretty much, our price points are right in line where everything that's abutting us is selling at a similar price point.
Except the density is drastic.
The density is different, but I'm talking about the overall sales price would be very similar.
But what's the property to the 6 acre? Is that a Simsbury?
Yes. Yes, the Simsbury Avon line runs east and
So
west.
there's one house on 6 acres to the right of that.
Correct.
And so we might see that property owner come in and do this.
Yeah, obviously he has the right, I guess anybody has the right to try and do so.
He could put 30 houses in there. You've got 2 more acres.
It's an overlay zone for the entire town. That's the way that it's established. So they would have to go through the same process, right?
I'm concerned with shaving the street. If our standard is 26 feet,
Oh, is this 24?
We've put on the plan a 26-foot wide road. Maybe that's a little bit of a cart in front of the horse, but with a road of this length and having met with the fire department and trying to reduce impervious area as much as possible, We would probably seek to reduce it to 24, but, that's, if that's not appropriate, then, we wouldn't do so. The fire department was not opposed to that, but this commission would be the
But your
one.
layout shows 26.
It presently shows 26.
Okay.
Right.
Just for comparison, for example, when we had Route 10 was repaved, the lanes were narrowed to 11 feet. So between the two lanes on Route 10 and Hot Meadow is 22 feet right now.
I wasn't in favor of that either.
No,
Wider space by Dunkin' Donuts.
Is that before or after the bicycle lane?
no bike lane on Hot Meadow.
Well, in light of looking for less impervious space, is there any chance for reducing some of the driveways? I mean, half their front yard is driveway.
We certainly could, yeah.
You've done it in a couple places, the longer ones where you've gone to just
Yep.
a single at the road,
Yep,
but that's a lot of driveway
yeah, we could
right
say-
after each other.
Yep, that's a good point.
Joe, to your point, I'd just like to point out too that the regulation does have on page 6 some favorable design treatments. And specifically, if you look at those diagrams, it'll provide some suggestions to the applicant should they decide to go forward about that and how the driveway should be treated. And there are some front treatments there that I think would be acceptable. The ones over on the right-hand side of that particular page are just determined to be unfavorable design treatments. So hopefully that's instructive with regard to that exact thing that you just mentioned.
Love this design guidelines. Love the design guidelines.
Subdivision, our subdivision requires 20% open space. How does this relate to that?
If the zone were changed by this commission, Dave, that WHOZ regulation would pertain. The open space, 20% open space set aside would not apply to that. There's been lots of discussion recently too in terms of how much of the town needs to be open space. And the Open Space Commission, Planning Commission have all discussed that recently. And this year, actually, we're doing a big study in terms of whether we have adequate open space. 32% of the town is open space now. And whether that should remain as it is, or whether any of those parcels that were taken as part of a subdivision, for example, should remain that way or not. So there's a study going on right now about that very point.
Okay, but I'm confused. If they have to go back to planning for subdivision,
If you change the zone, the rules change basically.
do they have to go back to planning or not?
They have to go back to planning for the subdivision, that's correct. But what this zone allows, and the subdivision will be looked at in the context of the regulation, this commission would act first as to whether the zone were changed or not. If the zone changes to WHOZ under this particular subsection, single-family housing, then the planning commission would act in accordance with that
How
regulation.
can we impose on the planning commission?
This is the commission with the authority. The planning commission's always complaining they don't have the authority. This commission actually has the
But they have
authority.
subdivision responsibility, we do not.
But
And
you're
so,
setting the rules.
You set the rules
by
for
which-
the subdivision.
Yeah.
Right.
I hear that. Having been on both bodies.
You could conceivably have some children
Absolutely.
in these houses.
Absolutely. There's no age restriction
Right.
for this development, right?
And I'm thinking of where in that end of town there would be any place, park or anything that the children could go to. There's obviously no place here.
Circle.
There's a big room in the
6
bottom
acres.
of each of those where they're gonna be sitting playing on their Xboxes.
Playground in my neighborhood. There's a playground at Avon. You're talking about Simsbury playground?
I'm talking about any place they
Playground's in Avon, not very far from there.
where? The Ensign Bickford?
Behind the Topaz School fields.
Oh, yes. That's right.
Yeah.
In the bike trail right there.
In fact, that would be good if it would attract some children. The schools are dying for children.
Yes, they are.
Hiram referenced this document, and did you look at page 6 and some of the design guidelines there?
We have.
Okay, because one of the things it does discourage is the garage fronted.
Right. As far as the garage fronting on the street, for most of the homes, it would be fronting on the street. We did look at a lot of New England style architecture. We've been working on that quite a bit. We would have that for the submission. But you're right, a lot of these are proposed with a garage fronting on the street. I think some of these lots, the larger lots back in here.
The bigger ones will be side.
Those could be side entry. But the layout in the center portion of the property would have a lot of garages fronting on the street. There would be a lot more architectural style, obviously, than the box that's here. We would have gables and reveals. It wouldn't be the monolithic front to the house.
So I think we could, as we give them our response, Kevin, you could certainly say the closer you adhere to, the more.
Okay, as long as they, adhere as closely as they can to the guidelines.
When you come back with,
Architecture and
so what would be the order? I think Dave raised a good question, Hiram. So, since we haven't actually approved one of these, from soup to nuts, so they would come and ask for the overlay zone, and we would grant that. All right. Would we have a site plan at that point?
No, because it would really end up being simply site plan for a regular subdivision ultimately. So they would come back to staff and have to comply with whatever particular requirements the commission imposed as part of that zone change. They would still then need to go to planning for the actual subdivision of the property that's shown here. That would be the second
And
step.
then at what point does anybody get to say whether what the houses look like or how they're set on the lots or?
Well, part of that's certainly going to be the zone change. If the commission.
I'm just trying to figure out how ready they're going to be when we
Yeah.
actually approve the change to the zone.
I hate to phrase it this way, I think you're going to know it when you see it, and if it's ready, fine, and if it's not ready, then I suspect you're going to ask them to come back and show you that.
Okay.
That'd be my
And does
sense
the
of it.
design review get a crack at this or not?
Sure.
in the process on your regulations, it talks about the zone change and then a special permit. And I don't know if that was outlined more for a common interest community or a subdivision with a separate special permit phase. Would that apply as well, to separate special permit phase?
We can probably, you can talk to town attorney about that and see how you want to handle that, with regard to coming back for design and whether that should be technically a special permit, whatever. But as part of the zone change process, that would be exhibited in public hearings anyway.
These are going to be two-story houses, and the second story is going to be less. They're going to be basically Cape Cods.
It's going to be a tradition. We're going to try and come up with a mixture of homes, because obviously we're trying to serve multiple purposes here. We're going to come up with some designs, have first floor master bedrooms for somebody who's, maybe 55 and older, who no longer has 3 kids at home. We want to have the homes try to have a minimum of 3 bedrooms. The majority of people today on the open market, whether they need 3 bedrooms or don't need 3 bedrooms, they still want a 3-bedroom house. We've got the 1,800 square foot homes, which will encompass the entire footprint that shows here. So obviously that would create a little bit more space between the houses as well. And then there'll be the traditional 4-bedroom, 2.5, 3.5 bath homes, which is really where still the vast majority of people today want to buy a home, young couple, either already have 1 or 2 kids or planning on having children. I just sold a house this past year on Berta Lane. That was in Avon. It was a 2,500 square foot house, 4 bedrooms, and it sold before we even started at $565. Sold before we even have a shovel in the ground. It sold.
Does the number have to be 18? The reason I ask is if we came back with some design changes and didn't like the garages underneath the building and you had to do something different, that's going to take some additional land on the footprint, correct? What's the magic number? Have you thought about that?
Well, obviously, every time we take a house away,
Right.
we're losing money. I'm not going to, we all totally understand that. So there's always a break-even point. So, and we are looking at that, by the way.
Okay.
So we're not just, we're starting here. We didn't go with the max. We could have. We looked at units, to be honest with you, that showed more units, smaller units. But the units architecturally, I'll be honest with you, I'm a builder. I wouldn't want to buy them myself because the units were so tight. I'm talking about now you have to get the houses down into the 35 to 38 foot range. And now when you looked at the house, basically all you did was, you kind of pointed you got made. You saw a garage because the houses were deep, but you look at it from the street and you look at it and say, oh my God, I got a garage here, but I got a nice fancy garage. That would have, from a profit point of view, would have been the most profitable subdivision. But I didn't like it, I didn't like the way it looked, so I said, let's scrap it, and we had Andrew redesign it, we had him cut back the units to put fewer units. At one point it was 22, 23 units, so we cut back the units. So what I've been doing is we've been working together in coming up with a house design that we feel is a marketable house from the point of view that it has to have street appeal. Somebody's got to be able to drive by that house and say, I like that house. When I did my Kingswood subdivision, at the time it was 150 foot for standard 1 acre building lots. I don't have a single lot in the subdivision that came in at 150 feet. I went between 160 up to almost 200 feet on some of them, because I know that when you build these big houses, even though you can squeeze them in, put in a big house, leaving just the minimum side yards, even though you may still have 40, 50 feet in between your houses, it just feels like they're jam-packed in there. And as a matter of fact, the Avon ended up changing the regulations in town due to the had some severe slopes in the Bridgewater, Northgate subdivisions, and the builders, that's what they were doing there. In my case, I built the subdivision, I built the houses. So whenever I built on a house A, I always took into consideration what's going to happen right next door. In those subdivisions, they were selling the building lots. Each builder does his own thing. He doesn't care what the impact is on the abutting lot. So that's how they got into trouble, where everybody was doing their own thing. Nobody was taking into consideration the grading going from one lot to the next lot to the next lot. That's what forced the town of Avon to go in and increase their frontage from 150 to 170, because the majority of land in town now was the severe slopes. All the flat land is all gone. Fortunately, in this case here, slope is not an issue. The entire property, if you start all the way at the far rear of where the cul-de-sac is, all gently, just gradually goes right back to climax. That's why we're able to deal with the drainage issues. We're not adjusting anything. We know the regulations require that everything remains on site.
All right. Any other questions?
What's the tax impact of the density?
Well, the house would be assessed and
Houses would be assessed at the normal assessment rate?
I know, but
I'm
just,
get numbers.
So it's higher taxes per acre.
right.
it's much higher. It looks like it goes from 25,000
Let's just make
to
more money.
200,000.
Help me help you. No, it's you get more tax dollars.
It's like 8 times as much as,
Yeah, there's
Oh, we had one house
one
there
house,
before.
one house right now.
no, I know, but if you just sort of thought about a good-sized house on that property, or 2 of them, you're gonna get $30,000 or $40,000 a year in taxes. And with these guys, you're gonna get probably 200,000.
But that neighborhood only carries 350 to 550 price
Right.
range
At
in that area.
price range.
So you're not gonna put $2 million
No one's
homes
gonna buy a
on
$1
those two
million
lots.
home in that.
No.
You
Yeah,
got 10
you don't
grand
wanna be the
per,
biggest house on the block.
you got 10 grand per kid for the schools.
Don't give me that
Schools,
stuff.
they already built the school.
Look, kids, they're down in the basement playing the Xbox.
Not during the day.
We got 500
Oh, they gotta go to school?
500 empty classroom spaces.
Right.
All right, so we need, so the point of this exercise was to give these fine applicants an indication that we would either very favorably, or unfavorably review such an application. I will say that I'm delighted that since we put this in, having given you the history, that we actually have what looks like a nicely sized property that would allow for some of this to actually be done. And so I would personally be favorably disposed to this.
Trolleys,
What?
trolleys.
Trolleys?
Talking.
They're nicely sized, and if we had some sort of public transportation, they'd really be in demand.
Anyone very strongly unfavorably disposed?
I think it's-
I feel a lot better after the discussion. When I first saw it, you know?
Yeah.
It kind of kicks you a little bit, but I think after
It's
having the
it's
discussion.
a little bit of a shock thing, but I know like
It's the right thing to do to come in here,
Yes.
because it helps us.
Right.
helps
Yeah,
me.
we had a very similar discussion with the zoning commission in the sense that there was that, it's a shock. It's not like any other zone per se in town, so the density is a little bit of a shock. But going through the goals of the zone, what it's trying to achieve, and how there's, there was some concern that maybe this should only be in the center of Simsbury or, along public transportation lines or things like that, but achieving that affordable housing zone through various mechanisms around the town, for a lot of reasons may be the best planning approach. And this would be one small step for affordable houses, but it's one small step towards that.
Have you guys had any discussions with the neighbors?
nothing of any major significance.
I mean, we're gonna go to public hearing.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And if we end up with 400 people in the street,
We,
it probably won't be in favor of
That's
us.
fair warning to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But I
we
mean,
get in front of that,
oh, yeah.
yeah.
We anticipate that anytime you do any kind of significant zoning change, whatever it is, you could go from 2-acre zoning to quarter-acre, half-acre zoning, and you're gonna get it, no matter what it is. I'm a developer, and I've understood that this is part of what happens. When I did the Kingswood subdivision, we were going with 1-acre zoning, abutting 1-acre zoning, and everybody still came out against it.
We're kind of hoping that with this kind of application that the public would see that this regulation allows this commission to have a lot of control as to how it's developed. The architecture, the style, the density, setting it to single family only. If it were the state affordable process where a third of them would be affordable, those regulations would be set without the input from this commission.
We
And so I
understand
think
that.
this provides
That's why we designed the regulation.
right to make it attractive to do such a development. And
I would go out on a
control
limb and
over
say
it.
there's probably not 200 people in town that are aware that we have this zone, okay?
That's probably fair. That's probably fair.
I think it's too much density for 4 houses of workforce. I would like to see it thinned down. That's mine.
It's quarter-acre lots.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of, there's probably 40,000 of those in California.
Well, there are in our town too. I mean, that was one of the ironic things about the one property that came in here was the neighbors were up in arms. They wanted, to your discussion, I won't name names or addresses, but they wanted to put 6 houses on an acre lot. And they said, that they felt like 4 was too many. And they all lived in quarter-acre lots, and the whole neighborhood was quarter-acre. It was funny,
It's very similar to the active adult housing movement that we saw 10 years ago, where high-value homes, a little bit more dense, but high-value homes, very similar style as far as first floor, master bedrooms, and it's very similar to that movement.
So what we would lose, if you go down to 16 houses, to Vaughn's point, then they'll skip the workforce house, and they'll go to the zoning, the planning commission and get a subdivision, and, within 1 or 2 houses, and he can solve for anything he wants, and pretty soon it all doesn't get what we collectively want.
Right.
So,
As far as the neighbors, you mentioned on the Avon border there's a long driveway. What's on the other side of the driveway?
Houses?
It serves 3 houses.
3 houses.
In Avon and 1 in Simsbury.
But is it just a long strip that's a driveway and then there's,
Yeah, it's. I think there's stone walls on both sides, or at least
No.
I'm sure on the north side. The left
North
side there
side.
is, and then the house here, just to the south.
so there is a house just south of that
Yeah, like from the
driveway?
property line,
Yeah.
100 to 100, at least 150 feet.
Yeah, there's no houses relatively close to either property lines.
Okay.
is there still a cemetery on that road?
Yeah, for the-
Just
yeah,
before that, to the south,
Okay, right.
So it's a cemetery, then the
about,
house.
about
the
500-600
town.
yards
Yeah.
towards Route 44.
It's literally only 60 seconds
But
to
you
get
have that,
from that point on Simsbury to Route 44.
Right.
It's a
you have that Ensign
60-second car
Bickford
ride.
property, right? On your
Huh?
side? You have the Ensign Bickford property on your side?
To the south.
To the what? Then you have a street.
No. It's south, Ensign Bickford is southeast of this property.
If you start along Climax Road, which would be to the east, I guess, on Climax Road, that's all Ensign Bickford property, right? Then there's a
Yeah.
street that goes down to what was the old Ensign Bickford property. And then there's more Ensign Bickford property on Climax.
That goes to 44, yeah.
It's still on the
No, I'm
A1.
going the other way. I'm starting at 44
Heading towards Simsbury.
and I'm heading towards Simsbury. Got the houses that Ensign Bickford had there, they tore down a few years ago.
Yeah,
Then you got the street that goes down to
right, goes east, yeah.
Avon Village. And then you have some more Ensign Bickford property, or whoever owns it now, that also had houses on it, Ensign Bickford houses.
I'm not familiar with that.
That's all before the cemetery still.
Okay, so then we have the cemetery?
Yep.
Yes. Then the house he's talking about.
Then the house he's talking about, then the line, and then that property.
So there's your playground.
And we're about 1,000 feet,
Cemetery.
we're 1,000 feet away from the cemetery about,
Yeah.
maybe 800.
Okay. All right, so I think that's,
appreciate
I
the
hope that
feedback.
feedback is meaningful.
Thank you,
We don't
sir.
actually vote on these things.
No.
but-
Right. Right, thank you very much.
All right?
Thank all of you.
Thank you very much.
You're saving the spot for you on Climax, I think, Ned. You're saving one of the lots for you on Climax. Unfortunately, it's an A lot, but I'm just,
Too fast.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where the line is. They're right on the line with Avon.
you know where Moravia Road is? That's in Avon.
Oh.
Next road is Evans, that's in Simsbury.
These are on the left side? Are they hit their?
On the left side.
There's nothing
As
on
you
their
go
side.
north.
No roads on their side till you get down to what? Davis Drive or?
That's a long way down.
Yeah.
Long way.
But that house was on
Just to, well, Henry's still here, so there's mention to the commission too that, just a couple of the comments that came out of the discussion.
This was all Ensign Bickford property.
That we had talked about was that I suggested to them that they get a report from a qualified real estate appraiser or sales professional as to sales potential of specific product they're talking about, but that would be helpful here. Some graphic, this is right from the email that Andrew sent me, so he knows about it. Some graphic information as to the context of the surrounding development, show that this development does or does not fit into the context of the neighborhood. Confirmation from the fire marshal as to approval using sprinklers in exchange for the reduced road width. Stormwater plan details, any pictures of developments from places showing similar development density, and calculations showing the estimated income and mortgage payment numbers that typically would go with the affordable unit. So those are some of the things that talked about at planning commission that I suggested to the applicant that they come back if they're going to.
Okay. And follow the guidelines. Come as close as you can to the guidelines, that'd be helpful. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
sprinklers in the houses?
Absolutely. Yeah. Fire marshal's big on that now, that they would like sprinklers in all residencies. Builders, I would say.
What's the
are not-
insurance impact on it?
Well, it's good, actually. I mean, the impact is good. Obviously for the insurance company, to preserve the house longer.
Unless it goes off.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I'll look that out.
Hey, that's interesting.
Just a couple of quick things, if you, I gave you an article, just happened to come across today. This is happened to be another affordable development that was done in a town I used to work in, where they decided to build about 70 affordable units down there. Very nice development, and the one on the bottom picture is the ones that they're going to tear down to build ones that resemble the picture on top. So I just thought it was an interesting description of 70 units right smack in the middle of town. It's really pretty impressive, and they're actually doing it, it's going to be an affordable development they're going to actually fund. So the article talks a little bit about that, so I'm not sure that we're there yet, but it's interesting. One thing I wanted to mention to you too, used to be Valley Car Wash, it's Auto Spa now, opposite Hoffman,
Yeah.
44. You may recall on the original plan, there's 3 parking spaces in front of that building, where sometimes the workers park their cars. On the original plan, it showed that they were going to have a tent there for detailing. It's not going to have any sides on it or anything. They came in this week, and I just wanted to bring that to the commission's attention, make sure nobody had a real problem with it. They'd like to put that tent up and start doing outside detailing now, so.
That's right where the road is, right? The new.
You go down to the driveway, but just before you start to go into the lanes to get into the parking lot, there are 3 spaces there.
Okay.
So they would have a short.
There used to
tent.
be a tent there years ago.
There
Yeah,
did,
right.
and it would just be temporary till the weather gets cold again. So I just want to let folks know, anybody, okay? Yeah. Okay, so I'll call Tunji back and let him know. He's been very receptive, and the place looks pretty nice compared to what it looked like before, so not sure if anyone's going there.
Not sure people recognize that as a driveway. Is there a new little road there?
Yeah, there's a road actually that goes all the way out the back.
back,
It's
yeah.
Pretty, it's a lot of money, obviously, so, but it seems to be functioning pretty well. I haven't heard of any problems there, so. Then the only other thing I want to mention this evening, Mr. Chairman, you may recall at 34 Hop Meadow, there was some discussion last time about reallocating where the garages were proposed to be at that
Yeah.
site. And I didn't know whether you wanted to see that, the reallocation or not, or do you want staff to deal with that?
Well, I think we approved it as is with a strong recommendation that they do their best to put gaps in between and make them look better, so.
Okay. So we'll take a look at it, and if it looks along the lines of what you said, then that's fine.
Almost any improvement would be accepted,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
That's really
they were
Kevin's-
interested in doing something themselves, right? They were interested in sprinkling them in different
Break it
places
up.
rather than a straight 36.
They are, I will tell you this, I don't think it's breaking any confidences. They said, as discussed, is a sketch of what they propose to do. We hope this could be handled at the staff level. If the decision is to go back to the commission again, they might consider not doing it. Just wanted to let you know what this is.
They love us that much.
Yeah.
I thought we were pretty
I
nice.
thought we've been pretty good at that.
I think so.
I'm just
I
looking,
think,
So we'll take a look at it, see
before
what.
we forget about the last application, I'm just looking at the map here, and the 6 acres behind it is landlocked. It doesn't go to any street.
They said that.
it's at the driveway,
Yeah.
right?
No, there's no drive, there's nothing.
There is a driveway. It goes right down the
Off of
south,
Climax.
right on the town line.
Yeah, it's got a right to pass on that driveway.
Google's and right about everything.
But to your point, I could see them not wanting to come in front of the commission again. They've already done this how many times?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So if you
I mean,
can handle it.
Yeah. I mean, if it looks good, I have no problem with that.
I'm
I'd
fine
go
with
along
that.
with, what Kevin and the chairman just suggested. That's fine. Okay, we'll work with them on that. Good. That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
So I'm going-
Anything on the supermarket?
No, we got through all the way. We officially adjourned. We don't need a big wide update. There actually is an update.